Welcome back to Kamikaze Overdrive MMA Predictions post-fight show for UFC 132, which took place on July 2nd, 2011. I had 10 predictions on the fight. Overall, I went 7-3, 5-0 in the prelims, 2-3 on the main card. It's a rebound from my last show in which I ended up 2-5 with Charles Oliveira's fight being called a no contest. Let's break down my predictions and see where I went right and where I went wrong. Anthony Njokuani versus Andre Winner. I took Njokuani to win by knockout. He ended up winning by decision. He nearly knocked out Winner on several occasions. A couple 30-26 is good on him. He looked very good. Brad Tavares, Aaron Simpson didn't see that fight. I took Simpson by decision. Simpson by decision. I'll take it. We'll move on. Brian Bowles versus Takeo Mizugaki. I took Bowles by submission. He ended up going to decision with Mizugaki. I'm hearing rumors floating around he broke his hand, potentially. I'm not 100% sure. I'll have to find out about that. If you see confirmation on that, either way, post it. I don't want to be wrong on here. But Bowles winning by decision. So I'm 3-0 on the preliminaries that were shown on Facebook that I had predictions for. We go to the televised Spike prelims. George Sotiropoulos versus Rafael Dos Anjos. This is my favorite fight of the night. I took Dos Anjos to pull the major upset. I said he'd win by decision. I said his striking will be better than Sotiropoulos's, even though Sotiropoulos was a heavy favorite. He ended up knocking him out 59 seconds into the first round, just clipped him and dropped him. Sotiropoulos has now lost 2 in a row. I'm going to talk about him in a little bit, what the future holds for him. But Dos Anjos, good on him, picking up a win. That moves me to 4-0. We're off to an absolutely fantastic start. Next, Melvin Guillard versus Shane Roller. I took Guillard to win the fight by knockout. He knocks out Roller, and I'm 5-0, going well. Then it all came crashing down. Moving to the main card, we started off with a welterweight clash, Carlos Condit versus Dong Young Kim. Carlos Condit, flying knee followed by strikes. Stops Kim almost 3 minutes into the first round. I had taken Kim by decision. I expected he could take Condit down. I was very concerned when Kim took Condit down and Condit reversed him. And you immediately saw Kim get a little bit tentative, and Carlos was striking big problems. And I said right in my video, Carlos Condit is a superior striker, and this is one of those fights I went back and forth on. And I had 2 fights I got wrong in the main card, and I'm not going to say either way. But I did originally, consider taking Condit based on the striking, and I went with Kim, and we learned from our mistakes. Either way, I got that one wrong, so I'm now 5-1. Up next, Tito Ortiz versus Ryan Bader. I would never in a million years admit to saying was considering taking Tito Ortiz because I wasn't, but good on Tito. If I'm going to get a fight wrong, I always like it. If I get fights wrong, I enjoy the fact that the guy who won the fight won. And Tito wins that fight, saves his career. You could see the emotion bubbling over. Drops Bader, catches him with submission, hold him in at 56 in with a guillotine choke. So good on him. I'm now 5-2. Moving next, one of my favorite fighters, Dennis Siver versus Matt Wyman. I'm 5-2 Siver. I took Siver to win the fight by decision. He defeated Wyman by decision. Gets me 6-2. Very controversial, and again, I'm going to talk about that later. But I'm just focusing on my predictions. So Siver, superior striker. It basically played out exactly as I expected. Siver would be the superior striker. His takedown defense would do enough. Wyman ended up taking him down a couple times and dominated that second round easily. But Siver striking out landed him significantly. He gets the win. I'm 6-2. And then we go to the co-main event, Vanderlei Silva versus Chris Lieben. Lieben knocks out Vanderlei in 27 seconds. A tough thing to watch. I took Silva to win that by decision, and I had pushed a lot on the board, especially on Sherdog, that this fight could go the distance. It didn't, and I think the reason is Vanderlei became a brawler, and I specified, coming off the Michael Bisping fight, Vanderlei's best bet here would be to stay technical and keep Lieben, use his reach, keep Lieben to the outside and pick him apart and force Lieben to try and come in and attack him and avoid him. And that's what he didn't do. He went in, he tagged Lieben early, and then he clinched, and Lieben started dropping the uppercut, or landing the uppercuts. And it was lights out. Chris Lieben, heavy, heavy hands. Vanderlei's chin, clearly not what it used to be. Again, I'll touch upon this in a few minutes. But Vanderlei Silva, devastating knockout. I'm 6-3. Main event time, Dominic Cruz versus Uriah Faber. I took Cruz by decision. He wins it by decision, just exactly what I expected. His takedown defense would keep Uriah Faber out of a dominant position for most of the fight. He actually used his takedown successfully in a couple of points. He was able to get back up when Faber took him down. His striking was too much. He was too elusive. He wins it. We've got a 50-45, a 49-46, and a 48-47. So judges giving Faber a couple rounds there. So overall, I finished 7-3. It's a little deceptive. 5-0 on the prelims, 2-3 in the main card, 7-3 overall. My total betting record, prediction record, Now 116-53. My UFC record 103-45. Main event record jumps to 19-10, which is a great accomplishment, I think, for me. I'm almost getting every 2 out of 3 main events correct. Before that, I wasn't doing quite as well. And my prelims that I do predictions on, I've only doing for a short time, 14-4, with 3 of those losses coming on the last show. So I definitely did have had some success recently, doing well. My bonus are the bonuses of the night: fight of the night, Dominic Cruz, Uriah Faber; knock of the night, Carlos Condit; submission of the night, Tito Ortiz, good for him. They all get $75,000 bonuses, so that's a pretty significant chunk of change for an evening of work, especially Tito and Carlos, only in there for a short period of time, getting the big chunk. Cruz and Faber had to stick around a little bit longer to earn their money. So those are my predictions. Again, 7-3. It's an improvement, but I'm not overly happy with my main card fights. Like I said, I wouldn't have picked Tito. With Vanderlei, Lieben, and Condit Kim, I went back and forth. Either way, what's done is done. I pick who I pick, and my record is what it is. Let's get to some of the aftermath and stuff coming out of this event, because it was a very good event. Alright, so I think there are a number of very interesting matchups that can be made coming out of UFC 132. And I'm going to touch upon not all the fighters, but a number of the guys who I think could be very good going forward to see them pitted up with someone else. Start with Anthony Njokuani. He showed exceptional striking against Andre Winner. Let's match him up with Sam Stout. I think that would be a striking war. Both guys are putting some wins together. I would like to see that on a free show main card. I think that would be a battle. Aaron Simpson, 185. He's kind of stuck in limbo because he seems to he's a mid-tier fighter. I'd like to see him take on Husamir Paul Harris. I think that would be a very interesting matchup. Again, that probably a free card show. I've got Paul Harris as my 10th contender in the division. I would like to see that fight happen. We'll see how Aaron Simpson fares there. We'll see where that goes. George Sotiropoulos, tough one here. This guy, I had him in the top 5 contenders. Back-to-back losses to Seaver and to Dos Anjos, and he drops way down. Put him again. He was originally supposed to face Evan Dunham. Maybe that would be a good matchup. Andre Winner, I think, would be an interesting matchup. Stylistic Winner, the better striker, has had problems with being put on the mat. I would like maybe see Sotiropoulos Winner, maybe get Sotiropoulos win, because I think the UFC is going to try and protect George a little bit, because he is one of their in-fighters when they go to Australia. And him dropping 3 in a row is not in their best interest, so they might give him a fight that's much more winnable. Dos Anjos, good fight for him. Rebounds from that Clay Guida matchup. Could he rematch Guida potentially? But Guida's kind of moving on to bigger and better things. Dos Anjos still needs to pick up another win or two. They don't like matching him up with a loser and a winner. Dos Anjos Pettis could be interesting. I don't know. We'll see where they go with him. I'm kind of in limbo where Rafael who he should be fighting next. Melvin Gillard. This guy is just one of those guys. He's like the new Jim Miller almost. It seems like he's putting a whole pile of wins together and just cannot get through that ceiling that's above him of contenders. It includes Jim Miller now, as to who could win, get a title shot. Who could he fight next? Melvin Gillard, Sean Shirk would be a very good fight. We'd see how good Melvin Gillard's takedown defense is. We see what his striking is. I don't know where Sean Shirk's disappeared to. I hopefully he's fighting soon. But Gillard Shirk would be a very interesting matchup. And we find out where Melvin is with his takedown defense and how he does against a big, strong 155-pounder. Main card, Carlos Condit. I'd say give him the winner of GSP Diaz for the title. I think he earned it. He hasn't got a shot yet. He's the former WEC welterweight champion. Give him the winner of that fight. We'll see how it works out with GSP and Condit being from the Greg Jackson camp. But I'd say he gets the next title shot. If GSP does beat Diaz, don't let me write that fight off yet. Dong Young Kim, he was originally, at one point he was supposed to face John Hathaway. That would be an interesting match. If he goes back down the ranks a little bit, I'd like to see actually Kim versus Josh Koscheck. That would be a very interesting matchup there. Koscheck, former title contender. Kim was on the cusp, and now he is where he is. We'll see who he gets lined up with next. I'm hoping he doesn't come back gun shy, because that was a brutal knockout. Brutal knockout. Tito Ortiz, he's called out Forrest Griffin. I think that's the fight that makes sense after, if we get that lined up at some point. Ortiz Griffin 3, settle the score. I think Ortiz, he beat Ryan Bader, but he has limited fighters that he has the ability to defeat. Just me, I think, in the division. But I think Forrest Griffin is one of them. They fought good fights. Let them do it again one more time. I think that would be good on them. Ryan Bader. I think Ryan Bader versus Matt Hamill makes sense. Both guys are coming off defeats. Hamill 1, Bader 2 defeats. I think it'd be a very good matchup. And it gets one of them right back into the mix. So Ryan Bader, Matt Hamill. I'd like to see that fight happen. Dennis Seaver, who's this guy take on? I like to see Dennis Seaver versus Clay Guida. Both guys are rolling. Both guys have won a number of fights in a row. Guida's this guy Seaver's got the excellent striking and the very good takedown defense. He was taken down a couple times last night. And Guida's game plan is to take him down. Guida's not the biggest guy in the world, not big as Matt Wyman. I would be curious to see if he could put Seaver on his back. But I think that fight would definitely create another top contender, winner moving on, and the loser wouldn't be overly devastated by a defeat and would still very much in the upper echelon of the division. Chris Lieben, who's next for him? I've heard Vitor Belfort's name thrown around out there. I think that would be a very interesting fight. We'll see how good Lieben's chin is there. We'll see how good Belfort's chin is there, and give Lieben an opportunity to move up in the division. Or another fight I thought about was a Chris Lieben-Michael Bisping rematch. Bisping's stuck in limbo. He's a title contender, but at the same time, it's like, who does he need to beat to get a shot at Anderson Silva? Do we want to see him fight Anderson Silva or Okami? Again, writing off the champion writing off the next challenger before that fight happens. But Lieben, an upper tier 185 fighter would be best for him. Uriah Faber, let's throw him in there with Scott Jorgensen. I think that would be a very good fight in that sense. With Faber, you need to be careful. He's now lost to both the 135 champ and the 145 champ decisively. I think they'll play up the 1-1. And if Faber can string together 2 or 3 convincing wins, he might get a shot again. I'd watch that fight again. It was fairly entertaining. He'll have to change his game plan a little bit, but either way, I don't want Faber to go through and wreck the division by taking out guys that maybe Cruz hasn't faced yet. So Scott Jorgensen would be a good matchup. And if Jorgensen picks up the win there, big on him, and he gets himself pushed back into title talk. Dominic Cruz, who's left? Who's up for him? This guy's now beaten Faber. He took the title from Brian Bowles, and he's beaten Joseph Benavidez twice actually, and he's beaten Scott Jorgensen. I think if they're smart, don't throw a new title contender in there. Let's let Cruz and the former champion. He took the title from Bowles. They did have the broken hand issue that ended that fight, but let's let Dominic Cruz, Brian Bowles mix it up, and we'll see how that goes. Now, because they have to be very careful with that division, because it's relatively new to the UFC, but a lot of these fights have already happened. Like I said, Cruz has beat a number of people. I'm assuming had Miguel Torres defeated Demetrius Johnson, he might have been next in line to get a shot at Cruz. Johnson's next. He's a relatively well-known. He's looked good. He's an undersized 135-pounder, which is hard to believe. Probably will go to 125 when the opportunity shows up. But either way, who's next? I'd like to see Brian Bowles go at it. Cruz did look better than him definitively, but it only went 2 rounds. You got to wonder what happens when the fight goes 3, 4, and 5. What can Cruz land, or can Bowles land? What goes on? Either way, it's a good fight. I like to see it as a co-main event, not a main event. Co-main event with another title shot. Either way, lots coming out of that show. 132, lots to go forward with. As you hear, I didn't give a Vanderlei Silva opponent. I think Vanderlei should probably call her a day. That was a tough fight because and I will touch upon this. It just seems like, I don't know. He took a big shot in the chin. He beat Michael Bisping, which is like, okay, he's a decent 185er. And he loses to Lieben, a good 185er as well, but a different style, and that heavy-hitting style. So you wonder who can Vanderlei beat that hits hard, because it didn't take Lieben long at all to show cracks in Vanderlei's chin, and there we have it. So we'll see. So those are the predictions and the fights I'd like to see coming out of the event. We'll see if any of them take place. I won't take credit for anything, but if they take place, awesome. Now, just some observations I made coming out of UFC 132 I think that are noteworthy. They show both Chuck Liddell and Randy Couture in the audience, and you gotta wonder how much is it burning with them that they both, they're done, retired. And here's Tito, and Tito takes out Ryan Bader, a former or current top 10 contender in the UFC, pretty emphatically with the dropping him and submitting him. Both those guys gotta be thinking, of all the people to still be going from our era, Tito Ortiz, guys we beat, we both of us beat. And here's Ortiz fighting, and we're sitting on the sidelines. Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe they're glad to see a guy like that win. I don't think Chuck is. I think Chuck would very much. His first thought was, I want Tito next. I want to get back there with Tito. And Dana probably had to rein him and say, no, Chuck, relax. It's not happening. Next, George Sotiropoulos. I did pick Rafael Dos Anjos to beat him, but I feel for the guy, because Sotiropoulos to me was maybe 2 wins away from a title shot, and if he could have beaten Dennis Seaver, he potentially could have been lined up in a #1 contender shot. If he wins that, and he just waits for his turn at the title. He looked very good in the fights he had won, but now lost to Deceiver and Wyman. I'll be taking one of my top 10 contenders, the 155-pound division. If I don't take him out, he will probably be 9-10, just barely holding on. I just don't think he has it in him. He's not. He's fantastic on the ground, and they always push that he has an amateur boxing background, but he's not the most athletically gifted of fighters. It just seems like he doesn't have that athletic prowess that other fighters will use that'll help them to get them through matchups. And as a result, I think the fall from grace for George Sotiropoulos will be significant. And I saw a lot of people throwing around the word overrated. Screw off with overrated. The guy's fighting. He's doing his job. He looked fantastic in his wins. He's just walked into two guys that are able to keep the fight standing and are better strikers. Okay, so just, Sotiropoulos, I don't know if he'll be back with a win. Like I said, I want to see him fight somebody like Andre Winner. Give him a chance to fight somebody who he can take down, should be able to take down, and should be able to control, and give George an opportunity to get back in it. But I think Sotiropoulos, like I said, his fall from grace is going to be abrupt and significant, and I wish him all the best, and I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. Matt Wyman, Dennis Seaver, decision. Matt Wyman, show some class, please. He lost the fight. He fires his hand off. He runs out of the ring. Runs out of the ring like Forrest Griffin style. Actually, Forrest didn't even wait for the announcement, but takes his shirt off. It's all angry, pissed off. And of course, I see why he's mad. He won the second round. Fantastic. Good for you. There's 3 rounds in a fight, friend. You can't win a fight by dominating 1 round unless you stop your opponent, which you did not. Sure, you cut up Dennis Seaver. The first round, Dennis Seaver won that fight with his striking. I looked at some of the breakdowns. The round 1 striking situation. Seaver outstruck Matt Wyman 38-9. That's a decisive first round. He didn't stop him, but he clipped him and nailed him several times. Round 2, Seaver actually outstruck Wyman 43-19, but significant strikes were to Wyman in favor 12-3. So again, but that was a ground and pound round. He cut Seaver open badly. It's 1 round apiece. And of course, Joe's on there after round 1. I should say this. Oh, Wyman lands a takedown with 18 seconds left. That might steal him the round. Shut up, Joe. Who are you watching? No way does that 18-second left takedown and lay on top steal him the round. He easily got outstruck. He was not, he lost that round. Oh, good. He took him down. If he takes him down and wins the round because of a little takedown at the end, that's the problem with the judging. You're constantly pushing. Takedowns shouldn't win you rounds when they don't do anything other than that. Third round, strikes 47-6 in favor of Seaver. Significant strikes 11-6. Again, that's a decisive round number. It doesn't show up as much as a ground and pound because it's not as visual of a thing where it's like one guy's on top, dropping elbows, the other guy's a bloody mess on the bottom like we saw in round 2. But it's a dominant round. That's 2-1. Dennis Seaver wins. 29-28. All 3 judges got it right. Thank you. And that was an example of a fight where takedowns, probably the most, for a lot of fans and the blood, the most evident part of the fight, but not the deciding part of the fight. And thank you, judges, for getting it right, because everybody gets all over you for screwing fights up. You got that one right. Good for you. Next, Chael Sonnen was in this audience for UFC 132, and I'm just going to touch upon. I read these and I laughed, but I want to throw them out there because they are relevant. Some of his Twitter comments, because we know Sonnen's suspension has been lifted or has expired, and now he's going to apply for a license and hopefully get back in the cage. I like Chael. He brings a lot to the fight game. Some of his Twitter comments, he wrote, "I can finally get back to the most important thing in my life, defending my middleweight championship. Watch yourself, Antonio." I believe he's talking to Nogueira. "Watch yourself, Antonio. You think I give a damn what you are, that you are at heavyweight? I've pushed people your size out of the way looking for somebody to fight." Vanderlei wins 22 fights in Japan. In related news, Hulk Hogan pins the Iron Sheik. So I guess Chael not giving a lot of respect to Vanderlei's past success in Pride. Again, you beat 22 men in a row over in Japan, and you can't beat 2 straight in the U.S. Big difference when the ref is not wearing an earpiece. Again, making reference to the fact that he feels, Vanderlei was being given an unfair advantage. I don't know, it's just Chael flapping his gums. And finally, that's probably my favorite one, even though I don't like the way he disrespects Vanderlei Silva, still entertaining. Axe murderer my ass, I'm more intimidated by Axe body spray. Okay. Now, like I said, he was in the audience, and Ariel Helwani interviewed him right after the Vanderlei-Lieben fight. And just some of the quick things I took from that interview. He said Vanderlei shouldn't be in the UFC anymore. MMA's not for him. He said he's just, beaten up, took too much damage. He said he would have finished Vanderlei quicker. He's the only guy who would have finished him quicker. Lieben finished him in 27 seconds. Chael, I don't think so. Chael, your style is not... it's not set up for quick finishes, I don't think, friend. So stop talking about that. He called it Lyoto Machida for a tune-up fight. He said, on my way back to 185, maybe I'll fight that karate guy at 205. I don't think a lot of people would pick Machida as a tune-up fight. I'd like to see the fight happen, see what happens. Be interesting. Either way, Chael just says what he wants, and I don't mind that about him. And finally, they asked him if he wanted to fight Chris Lieben. He said, I don't want to fight Chris Lieben. I don't know why, but he said he don't want to fight Chris Lieben. Who does Chael fight next? I don't know. Be very interesting. I'd like to see him Michael Bisping. That would be an interesting fight. Either way, Chael's not back. Hopefully he gets licensed. The UFC is better for having him in there. He's had some problems in the past. He's paid his dues. Let him fight. He's a good fighter. We'll go from there. It reminded me back of the Josh Barnett rant we saw after his win over Brett Rogers. And you got to wonder, is this stuff needed in the world of MMA? It's almost like WWE style of fight hyping, post-fight hyping. I like it. I don't want too much of it. I don't want to see every fighter at the end of a fight grab a mic or trash talk someone on the computer, but it adds some spice to matchups. And it gives those colorful characters, gives them an opportunity to get out there and show, this is me, look at me, I like to shoot my mouth off, but it's fun. It's fun, and of course you saw with the Crew's favorite main event, it adds to the fight a little bit. Either way, that's what we got there. Now, I was hoping to come on here, and on my last show, I do realize I was very, very harsh on Dana White, and I know Dana doesn't care. He doesn't listen to my show. I don't think so, anyway. But I was hoping to come on here and say, oh, Dana, great, blah, blah, blah. He paid $75,000 to all the bonus winners, awesome. But then in a post-fight interview, he goes and says, Vanderlei's done. He's retired. Stop doing that, Dana. Stop telling people fighters are done. This is what Dana's he's got an itchy trigger finger. Someone sticks a mic in his face, and he has to say something definitive. Stop saying that. Sit down with Vanderlei. I know it's your company and it's your call, but you said Chuck was done several times, a couple times, and he kept coming back and fighting. You said Randy was done when he was done. Let the fighter make the decision. Chuck got caught. Lieben hits hard. If Lieben hits anybody the way he hit Vanderlei, you're going to sleep. Now, I know I said earlier that I think Silva should quit, but that's just me. I'm nobody. Dana White is the boss of the company. Allow Vanderlei, sit down with Vanderlei, say, I got to sit down and talk to Vanderlei, see where he wants to go. Don't say Vanderlei's done. I'm going to try. I think he said I'm going to try and Chuck Liddell him into retiring, meaning chasing him and push him into retirement. Vanderlei's earned the right to retire when he wants to. Let him fight. If he's still got a contract, let him finish his contract out. But don't match him. He's not a top-tier fighter anymore. So we'll see how that goes. But either way, still a Dana White fan. Don't get me wrong. Like what he does. Not going to bash him like other people do and try and make a career out of bashing Dana White because I'm not going to mention names, but you guys have probably listened to this other guy's stuff before. But, there's a lot of people who want to be all over Dana and get up on him and the Fertittas in the UFC. If it wasn't for them, in a lot of sense, we don't have anything to talk about. And the MMA and the UFC and others and combat sports like that is not at the level it is, and not doing the business it is, and not being as entertaining as it is. But I'm not going to get into that. Brett Rogers cut from by Zuffa from Strikeforce for beating his wife. Should be. That's ridiculous. That should not be tolerated. Beat his wife in front of his kid. This guy's a loser. Should never be allowed back. That is an abrupt firing I can tolerate. You do something very, very stupid and put a black eye in the world of MMA, you should be cut. No, not the Nate Marquardt situation. Give him an opportunity to suspend him, see if he can justify. There's murky waters there. Brett Rogers not. Bye-bye, idiot. And so that was UFC 132. We have our next event is the end of this month. Strikeforce, Fedor versus Henderson. Looking very good. Very excited for that show. I'm not going to touch upon it right now. Either way, thank you for listening, and I'm out of here.